To be honest, when I first started streaming, I didn't even think about the outcome for others. It was just more of an entertainment for me. People seeing me get into, people seeing me frustrated when I do a CTF. I would look at some of my old videos, people telling me you're gonna struggle, and me like finding a solution within a few seconds and like clapping back at them like you would in a video game, right? But then it wasn't until like later on when I have more and more people come on the show because I do interviews, and people were telling me like you are doing something where people get to look over your shoulder and gain experience, even though I'm not looking at, even when I wasn't finding vulnerabilities, I was calling out why I was looking at something, why I did something specifically that way, or how I ended up where I was.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the 401 Access Denied podcast. I'm Joe Carson. I'm the host of the episode, and I'm the Chief Security Scientist Advisory CISO at Dilinia, based in Tallinn, Estonia. So I'm really excited about today's episode. So it's been a long time waiting, and I'm really excited to have Ben join me for today's episode. So we have a special guest, Ben, also known as Nahamsec. And Ben, welcome to the show. And just tell us about yourself, how you get into hacking, and what you enjoy doing, and some of the things
Yeah.
you get up to.
Well, thanks for having me. Thank you so much for reaching out and having me on the podcast. I'm Ben. Most people online know me as Nahamsec. I don't have an official title anymore. I don't have a title to give you. I make content now, and I'm getting into the whole mentorship thing full time.
Mm-hmm.
I've got into the content creation game right before COVID hit. I think COVID was one of the things that pushed my career to the next level because of how
Mm-hmm.
much free time I had, and we were all cooped up in the house, and everyone was in the house. They wanted content and entertainment, and it gave me the platform to do what I want. I got into hacking around when I was not even a teenager. I was a lot younger. It wasn't really. I didn't even know it was hacking, to be honest. I have an older brother. I always give him props for it. He had it was his computer. Being the older brother, he would always put passwords on it. First it was the Windows password, then it was the, you can lock the hardware, and then I just found ways to brute force it at first. And then later on, I would read the documentation of the hardware to see the default passwords on it. I still didn't know this is a thing. And then later on, I was just exposed to online chat rooms. I was about 11 or 12. Then I learned about hacking. People were hacking emails, and Sub7 was a thing back then. And kind of learned about those kinds of things. And then got into web hosting a little bit. My web servers got hacked, and then that's when it all took off. I just wanted to learn how to, close off those vulnerabilities. And then I was just like, no, it's more fun to know about the vulnerabilities. And then I quit. I became a teenager, went to school, went to college, didn't think there was anything to do with hacking. And then bug bounties showed up and
What
gave
did you do at
me
college? What did you
a,
primarily study as? Or
I did a lot of, so I was in computer science, but I always
okay.
loved digital marketing. So I, previous to becoming a bug bounty hunter, a hacker, content creator, I did a lot of digital marketing with friends. A couple of my friends' businesses, I helped them to get them off the ground, restaurants, that kind of stuff. I just never thought of it anything, and then I got into bug bounties. And the bug bounty story is a good one. We can talk about it later. But with content creation, it came a time where I could use my digital marketing experience mixed with hacking and build something that I've enjoyed doing based on my skills and experiences of the last 10, 12 years.
Yeah. So it sounds very much like Stoke as well. Stoke has a similar, he was very much into the video creation and production, and used that to definitely from adding that to his content streaming as well. So, and from yourself, having knowledge in digital marketing definitely really helps getting the visibility for sure. Because for me, I think one of the great things, one of the reasons I definitely want to have you on the show is that there's a whole. I come from the old school content creation,
Yeah.
blogs and speaking, and the old kind of old retro style. And I'm fascinated with the whole new kind of evolution that we're having of streamers, and those whose I even think it's going to turn into an esports at some point. I even do see the hacking esports happening and starting to build up.
Yeah.
So for me, I think we definitely need new ideas and new ways to get the information across to everybody to really help educate and provide knowledge. So when I look at what you're doing, what Stoke's doing, IPSEC,
Yeah.
amazing, and John Hammond, I think all of that is fantastic. in regards to really changing how we get information out there, because it's so important.
Yeah, and then with the streaming was a new thing for me when I got into streaming. It's how do you stream hacking, right? And then figuring that out was a big game changer with bug bounties.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I think there's still value in writing blogs, what you call the old school way, the retro
Yeah.
way. I think I did a poll a while ago on Twitter, and I asked like, would you rather read a write up or would you rather listen and watch? And everyone wanted to read it because you digest those technical content better when it's
Mhm.
written versus when it's visual. But yeah, I mean, it's each of them are a different target audience. But at the end of the
Right.
day, yeah, you're absolutely right. The digital marketing was a big part of it. I don't have any video editing experience. I have someone that edits my videos,
Mhm.
made my life easier. But just being able to say those years of digital marketing didn't go to waste, and I can use that experience to build myself a brand, build a community, build something that people want to be a part of was a huge plus. And it didn't click until later, a couple of years ago, when I was like, holy crap! Like the stuff that I used to do is being really valuable to me right now.
That's fantastic. And so, one of the things you started off getting into bug bounty. Is that where you started switching into and kind of taking that path? Because you wrote a lot of CVEs as well. You wrote a lot of vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
How did all of that start? What was the motivation? What was the challenges? And how did you kind of start into that path of bug bounty?
The bug bounty thing was by accident, I want to call it. It was a it's so I had a friend, I'm not even someone that I knew through school. He pretty much said, "Hey, why don't you go look into Oh no! First he said, "Why don't you get make money from hacking?" And I was like, well, "Dude, that's illegal. Like, I'm not. It's not easy to do that, especially my background." And he's like, "No, no, no. Like, go look up bug bounty." And I think back then was Google, Facebook, and Yahoo was just getting out of the whole
Mhm.
um, thing about like $12 gift cards or whatever it was, that T-shirts. They were attacking them about it. And I was like, oh, I used to, as a kid, I used Yahoo Messenger a lot. Yahoo services were
Mhm.
really like the thing that we used. It's like, I can bet you I can find vulnerabilities in Yahoo. That shouldn't be a problem. So
Mhm.
I pretty much said screw it with school. I didn't show up for classes. I pretty much I had to deal with most of my professors when I was like, I will show up for your quiz. I will show up for your
Mhm.
test. You let me get by however I want.
Mhm.
Not obviously wasn't the way. That's not how it worked. But the gist of it was, I will pass the course without coming to your class. My deal was I would go to YouTube the week
Mhm.
before finals and midterms, learn everything, and skip class so I can hack. Or I would go to class and have my laptop open, just hacking on Yahoo, running scans and that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
But yeah, I found bug bounties, and I just dedicated pretty much everything to it. And I went on probation eventually at school when they were like, "Hey, get it together, or we're gonna kick you out."
Mhm.
And it was either get booted, leave school, not finish my degree, and go pursue bug bounties, or really get it together and finish school and just get it out of the way. Because
Mhm.
at the time I was also an intern at HackerOne, and they really wanted me to go work for them full time. So I said, okay, like last year, give it all you got, 16, 17 units a semester, get it out of the way. I got out of the way, and once that was on, I was gone.
Mhm.
I told myself I could do it now or never, and I pretty much dedicated the next couple of years to bug bounties. I learned as much as I could, and I gave back as much as I could because if it wasn't for the write ups and the blog posts that were out there, I wouldn't have a career.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think from what I'm hearing is it was perfect timing for what you were passionate about. And also, I mean, around the 2012, 2013 time, that was all around when it was getting into responsible disclosure. And that's, of course, when Katie and Casey and everyone was all trying to get these large organizations to work with the hacking community in order to make sure that there's a way that they can actually get, early disclosures about vulnerabilities and have a mechanism. So it sounds like that's like perfect timing for your passion and also been able to make a career out of it. So it sounds like the timing was right at that point. So what kind of what is there a specific area that you focus on web application bug bounties? Is that is there anything that you expanded to, or is that kind of the area that you prefer to do?
It is mostly web applications. You can throw the fancy keywords of like attack surface management
Right.
for recon, but honestly, like recon and bug bounty are the two things that I mostly
Mhm.
work on. They go hand in hand, right? If I want to find more applications to hack on, I need to do some recon and find more assets. If people aren't familiar with reconnaissance, it's just like you're in the army. You look for different areas that your enemy owns, which the
Mhm.
companies aren't my enemy, but the target is a company what other applications do they have online. So I do reconnaissance a lot, and web is a big part of it, just because
Mhm.
I think with how today's society is online, everything is a website now. No
Yeah,
longer
everything's a
this
website or
is
an API.
everything is handled through a website API.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not people aren't manually saving things in a database. Everything's online. You want to sign up for your whatever, you have to do it online. You can want to even some restaurants now, they don't take your orders. You have to do it online, right?
You have to. There's no menus anymore in restaurants. You have to. There's a QR code
Yeah,
on your table. You have to scan it in
exactly.
order to get the menu, and
So
you maybe
like
have to even do the order in person. You have to actually order it, or even book. So everything becomes a QR code or a URL or an API call, and or application integrations. And you do have to do very little in regards to actually read something or talk to the person at the restaurant.
Yeah, and I mean, with the other thing is like, this is not an attack on red teamers. This is not
Mm.
me arguing with red teamers. What you do is completely valuable. I'm not dismissing it in any way, but I don't need phishing as much anymore.
Mhm.
I don't need to be on a local network to be able to get into a company's infrastructure. You do in a lot of cases, right? Like if you want to hack into a company, phishing is a big part of it, but
Mhm.
you also don't have to rely on those things anymore because
Absolutely.
everything is online, right? You can
Everything's
find
publicly
service.
facing.
Yeah, you
There's
can you can find server-side vulnerabilities that give you the same access as being in a network, but the same way you can get at someone's credentials, bypass
Mhm,
MFA of some sort, and get into the internal network, right? You have those two, but I get to do it from the leisure of my house without spamming
mhm,
anybody. Versus you have to go drop, USB sticks, go to, steal a badge or whatever that is, right?
mhm,
Again, this is not. I'm not saying you shouldn't do those things for your company security. I'm just saying my work is, can I get into this company like most of the adversaries do from other
mhm,
parts of the world, and I can do that with bug bounties, and that's partially why I've done a lot of web. I can do a lot of Active Directory stuff. I
mhm.
can do some network internals, but web is pretty much the thing that I realize is the most fun.
Okay. And so going back, one of the things you mentioned, which I think is important, is that when we talk about kind of the old school blogs, because it is
Mhm.
that kind of step by step process, and you're reading and following it through instructions, just like I would have done, and you would have done with the manuals of the hardware. You're going through and it gives you the instructions.
Yeah,
I think the big difference between then and streaming is that yes, I can in the online blog I can go through step by step in my own time. In the streaming, you have to stop and start sometimes. If you're watching it live, you have to kind of. But I think the difference is you're getting to understand the mindset, you're understanding the thought process,
yeah,
and I think one of the big changes for me, I remember even when the pandemic started, which is one of the reasons why we even started this podcast as well, was I wanted to keep communicating because I'm based in Estonia and
yeah,
not in somewhere where it's easy to get to the hacking community. And the hacking community here is quite small, surprisingly, even though Estonia is a lot of history in security. But one of the things I find it was KernelCon a few years ago when they did their conference online, and the conference that they did was impressive because they had different basically hackers. They gave them different tasks, and they had to do a task, and you got to see their thought process. You got to
yeah,
see when they were looking at challenges, and it was the first time they're seeing it. You got to see about what they were thinking about and listening to that. And I think that's one of the biggest things because you start getting into the mindset. You start getting into when you see something, what is it telling you? Well, that's where I got fascinated. I think one of the ones where I think it was when Stoke met up with you when you were doing the lift one. I think
yeah.
hacking it, and I remember watching that a while back, and I was like, wow, that's fascinating. Just kind of the mindset and thinking about it. So how do you think about that side of things, where you're starting to get into understanding about when you see something, what does it mean, and listening to the thought process? I think that's where the streaming part becomes really valuable, especially when you listen to streamers like yourself and IPSEC
Yeah.
and John. You start kind of getting into what you're thinking about when you see something.
To be honest, when I first started streaming, I didn't even think about the outcome for others. It was just
Hmm.
more of a entertainment for me. People seeing me get into, people seeing me frustrated when I do a
Yeah.
CTF. I would look at some of my old videos. People telling me you're gonna struggle, and me like finding a solution within a few seconds and like clapping back at them like you would in a video game, right? But then it wasn't until like later on when I have more and more people come on the show because I do interviews,
Mhm.
and people were telling me like you are doing something where people get to look over your shoulder,
Yep.
and gain experience, even though I'm not looking at, even when I wasn't finding vulnerabilities, I was calling out why I was looking at something, why I did something specifically that way, or how I ended up where I was. And then later on, I don't want to drop any names, but there's a hacker that used to watch my streams, would DM me a lot, and I would always miss their DMs. And
Mm.
he's a top hacker on the platform now on HackerOne or Buckcrowd. And I went to message him, and I was like, "Holy crap! Like, I follow this guy. I have all these messages from him from when he used to watch my streams." And it just blew my mind to understand, like, to me, there's been times when I want to delete those Twitch accounts because I didn't
Mm.
see any positive outcome, because I'm just doing these for fun, right? But then
Yeah.
I see these messages and I go, holy crap, like somebody actually took these things that I was ranting about and built some automation with it, or is
Mhm.
applying it to their bug bounty and making a name and money out of it. And those were the things that really blew my mind. And I was like, holy crap, there is value in people wanting to watch over you. Because you don't, a stream is supposed to be more entertaining than educational,
Yep.
because that's what most of Twitch is, right? Twitch sells you the entertainment. You have people like Dr. Disrespect, who is just a complete
Mhm.
character, not even real.
Yeah.
They're just different characters in this entertainment, and I wanted the entertainment, and then it turned out different.
Yep. I did find it when even earlier when a lot of the Twitch streams, even like Heath Adams and others, were kind of doing all of those kind of streams, and sometimes there was a part of it was entertaining. It was and,
Yeah,
when you include it with Discord and you include it with the communication and people are interacting, there's an entertainment aspect of it. But the things and what I prefer is when you're doing the live streams is you get to see a lot of the mistakes as well, and a
yeah,
lot of when you go into the rabbit holes. I mean, I even when I'm doing capture the flag, I get stuck in rabbit holes, and my head is against the table, just going, pulling my hair out, going, "What do I need to do next?" I
yeah,
remember doing one on Hack the Box, and I'm pretty okay in the privilege elevation escalation side of things, but in web application, I suck.
yeah,
Really, on the website and getting that initial access. I remember doing a box on Hack the Box, which was it was a server side template injection, and I was just pulling my hair out. I just was getting
yeah,
struggling. I was going into every single rabbit hole. And one of the things I reached out to someone, a friend of mine who was good in that area, and basically he was just giving me pointers about you need to look at this. And
yeah,
I think that's one of the things is that I think that we definitely need. When I see a lot of streams, I would prefer, I think John was even talking on social media recently about he had a bunch of videos that had him doing a lot of frustration in rabbit holes,
hmm,
and he was questioning whether to release them or not. And I think absolutely, because it's important that we see when you do go down rabbit holes how you can get stuck and lost, and it's about
yeah,
finding the time when you can come back out of it again. When you find, okay, I'm not getting any further. When's the right moment in time that I need to stop, come back, look at the bigger picture, and move on? So for me, I think some of the things that when I'm watching yourself and Jason and doing a lot of the live streams, I find that very, very. There is the entertainment aspect, but I think looking at when you're doing the rabbit holes and you're getting stuck, that's the most educational part of it, because
yeah,
that's when we all get stuck and we want to find when's the right time to, to go back and take a look at the initial findings, or go back and take a look at the bigger picture, because that's what we all get struggle on, is
yeah.
when we get lost, and it's about how do we find it again, get back on track.
Yeah, the thing with streaming specifically was one of the best things and worst things that could have
Mm,
happened to me from my career perspective. The worst thing was a lot of people saw how inefficient I was. I was doing a
mm,
lot of things, in a very manual way. I tend to stay away from tools.
mm,
I don't know, like how I use some commands, and people had this like super hacker view of me, where like they thought I would do all these like cool things, and I was like, no, I'm sitting here on a stream googling the most basic things. And I'll get to that in a bit. And the best thing about it was it made me more efficient, because people in my
mm,
chat who were sysadmins, or they were developers, who would give me pointers on how to do these faster, better
mm,
command ways of doing like things that I was doing, and so on. So that was the worst and the best case. But going back to what you said about
mm,
showing those rabbit holes, me googling things was one of the things that made it okay for people to feel comfortable about not knowing things.
mhm.
Here I am, at top whatever hacker on whatever platform.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here googling, how do I look up X? There was a time, I swear, there was a time when I was writing a really quick bash script, and I messed up a loop, and I was
Mhm.
just like googling on stream how to do a loop in bash. I was like, oh, I'm missing like a semicolon for my if statement, right? And I'm like, holy crap. Like, and people are just dying laughing at it. And I'm like, that's the reality of it. No one's going to come out on Twitter and
You,
say, I still look up commands, right? I'm looking at manual for, the set command sometimes. People don't say that.
I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and I even get to the point where I'm on a Windows box and I'm going, is it net local group or is it net local groups? And I always,
Mhm.
even today,
Yeah.
and there's about, I do so many typos as well.
Yeah.
Because even when I typing, I try to type fast, but I end up doing typos, missing a colon, using single quotes versus double quotes. And my mind is always thinking about, and I take a lot of notes. I
Yeah.
document everything as much as possible because I can't remember everything. And when I come up against
Mhm.
something again, maybe, absolutely, we all will do typos. We'll all make mistakes, and we'll all have to Google something at some point in time just to remember what the right syntax is. Because right now, syntax for different platforms, different tools, different commands, they are very similar, but they have slightly differences, and sometimes we get kind of overlapping. One thing I'm interested, I absolutely love doing the manual method because I learn first, and then
Yeah.
later I might kind of switch to the automated tools because I want to learn first. So are you still doing the manual method all the time, or are you switching to automated tools back and forward? What's kind of, because I think definitely manual is slower, but it
Right.
definitely teaches you a lot more.
Depends on what.
Mm.
So the tedious tasks of like, so let's say if I'm running a task more than 3 to 5 times a day,
Mhm.
right? I'm running a task that relies on different bunch of commands, tools. I automate those. But exploitation of itself, if I'm exploiting vulnerabilities, zero automation is what I'm doing,
Mhm.
unless it's a commonly known vuln like a CVE or something like that. Then
Yeah.
I'll have it automated. But I'm not running a script saying type in site.com. This is
No.
the image that people have is like top hackers are typing in site.com. It's like this command runs out and does this vulnerability. It's not like that, man. It's not. This reality is not that. I spend 3 hours going down rabbit holes
Mm.
of realizing, like, I'll give an example of a recent one. I sat there for like an hour or so trying to get API information out of this API. It turns out, guess what? I don't have to brute force anything. The leading slash was the reason why. All I had to do was take that out, and I was dumping all the. It was API slash users, but the leading
Yeah.
slash was screwing everything up for me. The trailing one, not the trailing
Yeah,
slash
the
was
trailing
messing everything
slashes at
up
the
for me,
end.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, after an hour, I accidentally removed it, and it dumps the list of all the users. I didn't have to automate that, right? You can probably automate that, but it's
Yeah.
just I get to do it manually. I've enjoyed the process of doing things manually, and I rely on tools for enumeration, that kind of thing. That's
Mhm.
very tedious and very time consuming. I rely on tools, but even then, I went through a period of my life when I wanted to learn how to code, and I don't know how to code at all, to be honest. Like,
No,
I'm one of the people
that's
that understand. When I mean I don't know how to
yeah.
code at all, I mean I really don't. Like, I can do Bash, I could do some
Mhm.
Python, some Ruby, but I can't write a lot of scripts. I can just use
But
Bash
you
to
but
automate things.
but I mean, you mentioned you did a lot of web kind of hosting.
Correct.
So you probably
Right.
HTML. I'm assuming.
Yeah, right. But I'm saying, like, I can't
Yeah.
write. So I went through a phase when I wanted to learn how to code. So I was
Yeah.
rewriting scripts, like how to enumerate subdomains, for example, or
Okay.
how to enumerate, folders and that kind of things. Not because I wanted to be the next person that created those tools, but
Mhm.
it was to understand why these tools work. So when I do use them, and I publish, I mean, their code is absolutely garbage. I should
Yeah.
probably remove from my GitHub, but it was to show that I wanted to understand why do these things work? How do they work? So I understand what they're doing before I rely on them. And that's the one thing that I recommend to everybody.
Absolutely. I mean, I want to make it clear to the audience is that one thing is to become a hacker and become a good hacker is you don't need certifications. That's
No,
basically it's something that I know some of the top people in the field and those who even started in this industry didn't have certifications. And the second one
I
is
have none.
you don't need to be a developer or programmer. I myself, I'm the same. So I started off. I know some code, but today my usage of programming and coding is to read and understand what it's doing.
Yeah.
I'm not the best at creating, but I have enough skills to read. I started off. I was a COBOL programmer back at university, and one of my first jobs was COBOL programming. And today, I mean, I did Perl, but I honestly,
Yeah.
I tried converting recently to writing more Python as well.
Yeah.
but I suck at coding. But at least the good thing is that you don't need to be a developer to be a hacker. What you need to be able, at some point in time, is be able to read and understand what some of the things is doing to a certain point. But absolutely, you don't need to be a certified hacker. You don't need to be a certified programmer to hack. You just need to understand enough. You need a computer and an internet connection. That's what you
Yeah.
need, and access to your content. That's
Yeah. I
if,
mean,
if you can read and watch.
I don't have any certifications myself. I have zero. I want to take the OSCP at some point just to say I did
Mhm.
it if I can get it actually. But on the topic of coding, you don't need to know how to code, but if you don't know, HTML much or JavaScript, you
Yeah,
can't really figure out what a cross-site scripting is because it doesn't make sense to you. You can copy paste payloads, but it's not gonna scale, right? I tell people learn at least 10 to 20% of the basics, of
yeah,
they're all the same. Like the 10-20% is almost the same. It's the same concept of
mhm,
loops, the same
yeah,
functions, everything is almost the same. But then understanding how, if you want to become a web hacker, my recommendation
mhm,
is understand what goes behind a website for it to work. For my
yeah,
case of a web hacker, understand what HTTP headers are, understand what a port is, understand how
mhm,
SSL certs work to a certain degree, understand, get, post, head
yeah,
requests, what happens and how does an engine, how does Apache work, how's things being served to
mhm,
you. Those understandings are things that you should know. But for me, it was just either you have to understand those things or you have to do what I did, spend enormous amount of times not understanding them and then
mhm.
Googling everything. I would literally Google everything. Why is this working the way it is? Or,
Yeah.
how do I spin up this to
So
understand them?
how much time do you spend learning? Because I think when I'm looking at my job and that I do, I mean, a large portion of the time is just continuous learning. It never stops. I mean, I could spend all day just consuming and learning information. Um, but what about yourself? I mean, how much time are you dedicating to continuous learning and developing your own skills and what area of focus are you working on now? What's the
Right now, I don't do enough. I don't have enough time, unfortunately, to do a lot. But I just actually, funny enough, like now that I'm doing content full
Mm,
time, I made a joke to my friends like, "Hey, I don't have a job. I'm an entrepreneur." It's completely a joke. I have a lot of time, and there's a lot of things that I want to build. So I signed up for one of these platforms that teach you how to do full stack engineering. I'm not going to become a full
mhm,
stack developer, but it's just I want to build some things that I want to build on my own, some web
mhm,
apps, some labs that's going to help me get there. And so now I'm having time, I'm dedicating a Monday or Tuesday where I learn things,
mhm,
or a couple hours a day when I learn new things. So that's my focus right now. I want to really get better at developing my own apps. But
mhm,
also the other thing that I wanted to do is I'm doing a lot of attack surface management stuff just because it's
mhm,
becoming a very big part of today's security, right? And I want to get better at it, and I have some expertise
mhm.
there, but I'm learning more and more things. So I'm playing with a lot of DNS stuff. Hopefully, I can get some content out for it. But yeah, I'm going back to learning more and more just because I feel like for the past year and a half to 2 hours, I became a content creator and a trainer where I neglected my learning
Yeah.
days, or my journey as someone I was continuously learning. And now I'm going back to I have to have a balance of like learning these things and applying them because especially with hacking, it's a never ending journey.
Yeah.
You cannot
I-
say I know everything right now. There's new techniques, new vulnerabilities, new things that come out every
Yeah.
day.
Absolutely spot on. I mean, we can never be experts in everything. I mean, this it's such a broad industry that there's so many different specialty, fields, whether it being cryptography and getting into certificates, getting into malware reverse engineering to social engineering. This is such a broad industry that the way I see it is I need to surround myself with really smarter people than me in those areas, and I go to them for help. And I think that's one of the
Mhm.
things that I think what I'm impressed about what you've done is you have the ability to bring the community together. And I think that's what's really important is that not just in the bug bounty community, but also just bringing hackers together and working together. Can you tell me a bit about how challenging is it, especially during the pandemic, to build communities to bring people together? Because I think I think that's one of the most important things we need to keep doing, and we need to find ways to at least connect people with certain skills together to others. So whether it being mentoring, whether it
Yeah.
being helping point them in the right direction, or helping teach them something new. So how important is the community to you?
The community itself is very. I think if you're not a part of the community, it's just gonna make it harder to learn things.
Hmm.
Especially with our community with like hacking, everyone's very open to share things. There is a select people that are elitist or they don't want to share it completely fine.
Yeah.
You're not required to share. But I think the biggest thing for me is just um, especially when I came in early on, it was just feeling that I wanted to belong to something,
Hmm.
right? I wanted to feel like I was a part of something, and that's partially why I was doing the write-ups that I was doing. That was partially why I was disclosing bugs that I found. That's why I got on Twitter. But honestly, building a community didn't happen like as a thing for me. I didn't plan on building something. It's just the way I explain to people is when I joined bug bounties,
Hmm.
there wasn't a lot of resources on web hacking.
Yeah.
There were write-ups. There was the invulnerable web app and
Yeah.
metasploitable, but there wasn't people telling you
The
this
juice
is how
shop.
I did it. Yeah,
The
there
the
wasn't
juice
a lot of
shop.
people saying this is how I found this bug
Yeah.
because it's about money, right? Everyone's making money. They don't want to give away their secrets. I had a
Hmm.
hacker that was like, "Why are you telling everybody how you do all these things? You're just gonna make competition for yourself." And I was just
Hmm.
like, who cares? Like, I understand the money aspect of it. I want to make money, but at the same time, I want to give back to people that were helping me at some point, and I want to pay
Hmm.
it forward to the same people by publishing some of the work I've done. So for me, it was just more of a feeling like I was a part of something, and B, who did I wish was out there when I was first getting into bug bounty and hacking? Could I be that person for a couple of people? Can I help them learn from me by showing them my experience, sharing my expertise, and the things that I've learned? I don't want to say expertise, but things that I've
Hmm.
learned the past 7, 8 years, and see if I can make a difference.
Absolutely. I think that's critical. And one of the things you did recently, you had Naham Sec conference this year.
Yep.
How was that your first conference that you put together by yourself, or was that something that you've been doing for a while? And
So
how difficult?
Yeah, NahamCon, this is the fourth year. We're actually doing
Okay.
one on December 17th for Europe. We're doing two a year now. That also happened because of the pandemic. So me, the cyber mentor, Stoke, and John Hammond got together and we were going to host a virtual conference right before the pandemic hit. We didn't know
Mm.
the pandemic was going to happen, but we were just planning on. So the way it worked was me and Heath were partnering together to do something for a charity
Okay.
for LLS, Leukemia Lymphoma
Mhm.
Society. And the pandemic ended up happening. It kind of fell apart, but we had this event planned virtually for people to donate. And then when the pandemic happened, we were already, it was the first week of the pandemic, and our conference was accidentally set for that day. We had no knowledge of the pandemic happening.
Mm.
So we got lucky that everybody was stuck at home, and we had about 3,000 people come up and
Whoa.
watch the stream. Google, Amazon, a bunch of big companies sponsored it, and we raised
Mhm.
$55,000. That was all donated to LLS, the Leukemia Lymphoma
That's
Society.
impressive, and that's why it's always one thing is not only can we share knowledge, but we can also do good for the people who need it as well. That's impressive.
So yeah, that when that happened, I was like, holy crap! Like there is something here. My whole thing is I have
Mm.
nothing against conferences. I love going to conferences. I love B-Side SF. Besides SF, I like
Mm.
Portland's B-Side. ShellCon.
Mm.
I gotta think of a few more. KernelCon was a really good one that I
Chronicon,
went
yeah,
to.
it's been impressive.
Yeah.
Uh,
AppSec Cali, AppSec Global,
mhm.
AppSec DC, 44Con, you name them. I love
Mhm.
conferences. Like I love going to speaking at these conferences. But when I go to these conferences, it's such a broad thing, right? Like you
Mhm.
have people talking about blue team, red team, SOC, all these different things. I want to just learn how to hack things. I want to hack.
Yeah.
I want offensive security. How do I hack into a website? How do I find X, Y, and Z that's going to help me as an
Mhm.
offensive web security engineer, whatever you want the title, right?
Yeah.
So I created NahamCon. There's a reason why we don't have a CFP for NahamCon. I look at what the research has been done throughout the year,
Mhm.
and I reach out and say, "Hey, I love this research. I love this blog post you did. I love this talk.
Mhm.
Do you want to come and talk about it at NahamCon?" If you go on Twitter right now, there's two people that just released stuff at in Europe. I literally wrote on the bottom of their tweet that says, "Hey, do you want to come present this at NahamCon publicly?" I have no shame in doing
Mhm.
that. And they said yes. They reached out. They want to come and do it at NahamCon. So it's just more of a what do I want out of a conference? I'm sure I'm not the only person that wants a focus, conference on web
Yeah.
hacking, and that's how Nahamcom was created. And it's my way of also giving back to the community. We don't charge our attendees at
Mhm.
all. It's completely free. It's on Twitch. You can join, watch. You don't have
Yeah.
to be following us. You don't have to be a subscriber.
We'll
Nothing.
definitely
It's
we'll
free.
definitely make sure we get all of the so make sure we get all the links. We can add them to the show notes. So
Absolutely.
for the audience as well, because definitely I'm pretty sure there's a large part of the audience will definitely want to attend.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't charge
Yeah.
people. We have sponsors that pay us, help us pay for it, and
Hmm.
we give a large portion of it back. We gave away at PWK Pentesting with Cali by
Hmm.
offensive security vouchers. We give Pentester Lab vouchers. We're gonna have book vouchers we give away. It's most of it. We get these and then we give them back, and we put money into our CTF.
Hmm.
John Hammond, God bless us, God bless that guy, man. He is one of the key players in the HomCon, and I reach
Hmm.
out to him very randomly. Hey, do you want to do a CTF? Yep. We put it together. I think last year we gave $5,000 in prizes to our
Hmm.
CTF, which is one of the higher ends of it if you look. And John gets very creative with his CTFs. So it's just more of the two people that love the
Hmm.
community. We being Heath one of them or Stoke
Yeah.
being one of them. They join me every time,
Hmm.
and then John loves doing the similar things. We all come together. What don't we like about other conferences that we've been in the past? We avoided. What do we like about conferences that we go to? We bring those on, and every
Hmm.
year we experiment with something new. From villages to you name it, we have done something really different every time, and it's been something that I've really enjoyed doing.
That's fantastic. I mean, I think that's what we all enjoy doing is when we get the things that we like at conferences and the things we don't like, and then we try to bring them, into the new generation. And definitely, I mean, that's how DEF CON started. Was with it was the evolution of Black Hat. Ultimately, it was the next step into really getting where we can actually really share our knowledge in a different kind of audience and be part of a village, be part of a community. So. Question though, where did the Naham come from? What was what was the
So
background on your handle? Is that
that is something I've never discussed. Everyone's trying to figure it out. I don't think every podcast I go on, they ask me the same question. It's something that's gonna always stay a mystery. It has no meaning to anybody. It's not a real word. It's
Hmm.
something that means something to me. It's a combination of things as family,
Hmm.
childhood things that I put together. It has zero meaning. I've had people tell me like they looked up in a dictionary trying to figure out what it means different languages, and I'm like,
Trying to decipher it?
there's
That's fun.
nothing. There's nothing there.
No, I think it's really cool. It's definitely memorable, and it makes it's very unique. Um, you definitely got to. It's something that people completely match to you. So for sure.
It doesn't make any. I don't honestly. I was sitting there. I was like, I needed something that had a meaning to me, and there's a piece of my childhood that came into it, and then another piece was a family thing that came into it,
Mhm.
and then I was just like, I'm gonna be in security. Just slap a sec at the end of it. Now that like it's I'm doing branding stuff and content stuff, it's too late to rebrand. So I've stuck to
Okay.
it. And NahamCon, it was just so the first conference we did was
Mm.
VerseSecCon, Virtual Security Conference.
Yeah.
Very, very creative, right? And then it worked. But then we were like, okay, I sat here with my team and I was like, what do I call this thing? And we couldn't come up. I didn't like any of the names. I was just like, I'm gonna
Mhm.
call it NahamCon. And then I felt really like weird about having my own name as a
Okay.
conference. Then I see things like Gary, it was a VCon for Gary V and other people doing similar things. I'm like, I'm not that big of a content creator, but it's normal to create something and name it after myself. But I've also stepped out of NahamCon. I'm no longer the host even. It's less about me
Mhm.
because my name's on it. This year is being hosted by Farah Hawa and Insider
Mhm.
PhD. Katie. Last year was hosted by Stoke and Jason
Mhm.
Haddix. I'm phasing myself out as a host and then being an organizer and focusing on the community aspects
Yeah.
of bringing people together more than anything.
No, that's it's always important because I know the pain. I remember, I've been host for a lot of events, and the time consuming into it, and it takes your focus away from the things you want to be doing, which is around the part of it where you want to be, keeping it to what you want it to be.
Yeah.
And if you're spending time hosting and organizing and planning, that's a lot of time that somebody else can be doing for sure. So what's next
Yeah.
on the charts? What's your plan for? I understand you're going to be doing a lot more mentoring then, and what's next for the plans that you're going to be doing?
My next thing is
Yeah.
actually making this whole taking my brand to the
Mm.
actual like next level, whatever you want to call it. I've taken a step back from I went from an intern to doing some director work at a
Mhm.
company. Now became a VP at the next one, and I realized like the 9 to 5 was a great place for me to learn all the experience that I wanted, combining with my last experience with like digital marketing, and now it's like
Mhm.
dumping all that into my own brand and company. I don't know where it's gonna go. I want to do a lot of content, obviously. I have my
Mhm.
course that I want to kind of update and do more teaching, and then getting into actually helping others get into infosec, get their first job,
Hmm.
have an impact on the community a little bit more. I don't know. This is week one as we speak of me being on my own for my own brand, but hopefully I can start doing some consultancy and
Hmm.
doing some work of my own and seeing where it goes.
No, absolutely. I think it's. I think you have the definitely the creativity and the knowledge and the passion to really. I think there's very few people that does what you do,
Yeah,
and you're changing the community. You're changing the way that we learn. You're changing the way that we all come together, and I think it's great. I think for me, I think that's definitely the way forward. And even I remember early this year, I was really happy to see I was at RSA, and during RSA there's the cybersecurity bloggers meetup,
yeah,
and I was like, it's still bloggers who was going to it, and I was so happy that they are now evolving. That I think it was I invited John across, and Jason came along, and we were
I
all
was
there.
there. I don't.
You were there.
Actually,
We
I was
probably
there.
missed each
Yeah,
other, and I was so happy that they
yeah,
were actually talking about changing the format. There's no longer it's about content and creativity and
yeah,
innovation,
yeah,
and they're now opening it up. And so for me, that was an exciting. I think that was a pinnacle moment of the where that old school new school was now going to the next level.
yeah,
So when Jennifer got up and she was talking about that whole new change in idea, and especially when a lot of people who's we probably missed each other and we were there at the same time. So because I've got some great photographs with me, John, and Bruce at the event as
yeah,
well. We
yeah,
were all
yeah.
together because I met Bruce the week before because he was in Tallinn and we were chatting at the airport. And then he literally went home and met up again at the Bloggers Award. But I think this is the new, is where we can take. I would really want more people to kind of work together and do a lot of more live events because I think that's
Yeah.
where the future is, especially for hacking. Ben, it's been awesome having you on. It was awesome chatting with you. Any things that you want, for those who's watching, who's wanting to also get into this, and do streaming or do, getting into speaking and getting into either want to become a mentor or get mentored. Any recommendations you have for the next generation, or even those who's been in the industry for a long time and just looking for something new to get into to learn?
Yeah, for people that want to get into the whole content creation thing,
Mm.
honestly, it sounds very generic or cheesy. Just do it. Honestly, just get up there and don't let the little minor details get in the way. If you look at my
Mm.
early streams, it's just me in an empty room pretty much with a webcam and like an old laptop that I had. I was just streaming on. It doesn't matter if people want to get some value. We're going to show up and learn from you. As long as you're giving value and you're giving back, I
Mhm.
think people are going to see that and want to be a part of it. And people that want to get mentorship, want to get started, it's also the
Mm.
same thing. You have to get the experience. You gotta stop learning at some point and start executing and using those things that you have learned. There's nothing wrong with asking people questions, but the one
Mhm.
thing that I ask is I get a lot of haze and yo and hi DMs with no context. If you're gonna ask a question, remember the first thing I see is the preview of the message, right?
Mhm.
Hey, I want to ask you about X. Hey, I saw you done Y. I want to ask you about it. Get that person's, people. I get a lot of DMs. I filter them and try to answer as much as I can. But that
Mhm.
opening statement that you have is your chance to get that person to go, oh, this person's asking me a real question versus, hey, can you help
Mhm.
me with? And then I open it to hack my ex boyfriend's account or hack my ex. That's when you have to be very, very good at making it
Yeah.
clear that hey, I've tried X, Y, and Z, but I'm really stuck on doing this, and can you give me a pointer? Really ask the right questions so people want to help you. Help me help you is the way I could put it. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of resources. I'm not gonna get into them. They're
Mhm.
online. Go look for them. There's a lot of platforms that you can learn from. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's just you get out what you put in, and you just got to put in the work.
Yeah, you definitely gotta put in the work because it is something. It takes a lot of time and a
Yeah,
lot of commitment, and I think definitely at some point in time you have to jump in. You have to take that leap as well, and it's you gotta try it and just get started. So
yeah,
Ben, it's been awesome having you on. We'll definitely make sure that for the audience that we'll definitely get all the links to make sure that they know how to contact you and to all of your content and your streams and so forth. So I'm pretty sure that they'll be really excited to learn more from you. It's been awesome. I've learned a lot as well. It's been great connecting because it looks like we've been in a lot of the same places, just
yeah.
we missed each other for by minutes or by just being at the wrong side of the room. But definitely looking forward to next time. We'll get some time to catch up and have a good chat. And I'd love to come on one of your streams as well at some point. So we can do some live recon at some point as well.
Love
Um,
that. Yeah.
Even though my rusty Perl and Cobalt skills, if you ever have a Cobalt problem,
I will let you know.
you
I will
know who
definitely
to
reach out.
call. So, but it's
Yeah.
been awesome. So again, thank you for coming on. For the audience, hopefully this has been valuable for you. And I definitely think, really, getting into content, learning new ideas, being a fly on the wall, watching over somebody's shoulder and learning it's a great way. And never be afraid to ask questions. That's, I think, one of the key takeaways is that, never be afraid to Google is something you're going to use. You're going to forget
Yeah.
things. So take notes, write things down, and don't be afraid to reach out. Don't think that we become experts of everything. Just make sure you surround yourself with a great, knowledgeable community who's always willing to help. So tune in every 2 weeks to the 401 Access Denied. Ben, Nahamsec, it's been awesome. Take care and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.